Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Saturday, May 10th, 2024, and the government is enabling the theft of land, and I can't remember the details of that story, but it's interesting because... No, I can't remember the details of that story. We're going to start today talking about Mark Carney. $33 billion in new government spending was just approved through an order in council. And we've got details. People were talking yesterday about how the CBC is getting more than CSIS. We've got a list of all the government spending within this $33 billion behemoth. So we'll start there. And I think it's interesting because we have an election result. There's no reason not to have the House of Commons come back and have a debate. If you need this spending passed fast, why didn't you bring the House of Commons back when you had the opportunity? I don't know. Trump signed an executive order enabling free flights and $1,000 bonuses to illegals to get out of the United States. He says, I don't care where you go so long as it's not here. Get out, he says. And I've got the video of that for you as well. Ontario is building small modular reactors, and it's not going to work. Australia, I've got a whole write-up from Australia about how it hasn't worked in Australia. It didn't work anywhere else they've tried it, and they've tried it in other places, I think including New Zealand, Canada cited, United Kingdom, and a whole bunch of other places as well. It didn't work then. It's not going to work in Ontario. We're wasting money on this, but nobody cares. And it seems like you can know this and you still have to watch the freight train crash into the bus anyway and say, oh man, if only they'd listen to me, right? Darn it, right? There's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with this $33 billion payment or $33 billion behemoth, as I said. Canada Proud is reporting this doesn't sound very democratic. The Carney Liberals quietly just bypassed Parliament by approving $33 billion in new government spending via an order in council under the guise of it being urgently required for the public good. Why aren't they putting this through Parliament? Great question. I have questions about that too. One of the things, I talk about this in the Canada Poly chat sometimes, and the number 33 comes up a lot. And I tagged this because of the 33 billion. And I thought, man, that number 33 is coming up a bunch. And these guys think the number 33 being used as a message signals it's go time. Let's hit the accelerator. Let's put the gas on this. So here's 56 seconds of that number 33 popping up during COVID and what Johnny Bravo. So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but it's interesting nonetheless. The number keeps popping up and it does coincide with increases in attacks on freedom. Here we go.
We have 33 confirmed positive tests.
We have 33 Pennsylvanians who have tested positive for
COVID-19.
Today we have 33 cases.
There were 33 new cases.
The state of Minnesota today reported 33 new COVID-19 related deaths.
There are 33 confirmed cases in Arkansas.
That's the largest single-day increase so far, raising the total to 33.
33.
There were 33 confirmed cases in North Carolina.
33.
There was 33 everywhere.
Yes.
I think that was Red Team Go. I think 33 is like Red Team Go. Everybody goes, okay, let's do it. It's time.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, there's like literally 1,000 33s and 33 new cases. 33 people died in fucking Hong Kong.
The number 33, we all know what that represents.
So there you go. I thought that was just interesting. So take it with a grain of salt. Who knows? Could be a coincidence, but 33 billion, just a very specific number for all that money that we suddenly and urgently owe for the public good. Kyle says, WTF, Uncle Mark and his friends just cut themselves a check for $33 billion without any parliamentary approval and no definition on what it's for. Well, there's some definition. I've got the link here. Here's the order in council. Here's the order in council division, order in council, and May 2nd, 2025. Okay, you can see. And it says, whereas the president of the Treasury Board reports that there's no appropriation for the payment of the sums set out in the schedule, meaning the budget sets this much money out and there's no way to get that money. So what do? Amounting in the aggregate to 33 billion and change, 102 million and change. And the appropriate ministers have reported that the payment of these sums is urgently required for the public good. Don't worry, everybody, it's for the public good. And whereas Parliament is not in session and there's no other appropriation under which the payment of these sums may be made, Therefore, Her Excellency, the Governor General in Council, on the recommendation of the President of the Treasury Board under subsection 31. We'll have to see how much the Treasury Board gets, because everybody's getting millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars splashed out. Anyway, under section 31 of the Financial Administration Act, directs that the special warrant be prepared to be signed by the Governor General, authorizing the payment effective May 16, 2025, of the sums set out in the schedule, amounting in aggregate to $33 billion, to be made out to the Consolidated Reserve Fund. And then same in French. And then here is all of this. CBC gets 178 billion. And then if we look up security, the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service gets $127 million. Did I say billion? I meant million. So interesting, right? 178, 127. Propaganda. Mocha informs us why. Okay, here's what Mocha is. Here's the insight Mocha offers on this one. There are two types of propaganda, one to retain the already convinced and one to convert the rest. In our last election, we saw heavy investment on the former, the one to retain the already convinced, and very little on the latter. Nobody's trying to convert me because it's falling on deaf ears and they know it. In our both are necessary for a functioning democracy, but can't be decimated through the same channels. Disseminated, maybe. We are bound to see more sophisticated propaganda strategies in the next election, and there are third world democracies already advanced on these tactics, which will inevitably be imported to Canada. As the third world is slowly catching up to the first world is set to quickly catch up to the third. So all the crackpot election tactics we see in third world countries with despotic kings and regional conflicts and things like that, but also like Burisma and all of when we had to, SNC-Lavalin famously bought yachts for Gaddafi's kids in order to make deals happen. And when that came to light, they said, well, that's just how the deal is done. That's just what you do. You bribe people, right? And so those bribes, that way of doing things, has been brought here. And so that's what's going on, except it's being more entrenched further, right? And so you can go through all this. What did I ask for? The Treasury Board. I wonder if there's a Treasury Board. Treasury Board Secretariat is right at the bottom. Hold on, let's see. Treasury Board Secretariat. $1 billion. Is that a conflict? I need $1 billion, Mr. Bigglesworth. Are you kidding me? Okay, so everybody's getting paid off. Everybody definitely needs this money, right? The Library of Parliament gets $7 million. Library of Archives gets $20 million. International Joint Commission gets $849,000, but they're getting shafted, right? Financial Transactions and Report Analysis Center of Canada gets $5 million. Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario gets $31 million. So there's all sorts of crazy. Department of Health gets $1 billion. Department of Indigenous Services gets $3 billion. Hallway healthcare pish posh. Why? If the Indigenous people using Indigenous services money provided their own healthcare just for themselves, they'd probably be way better off than going into Gen Pop Canadian healthcare. Like, holy cow, they're funded 3 times, 3 times more. Unbelievable. I digress. This spending raises eyebrows, and it's kind of weird and seems weird. Western Standard says Canada injects $33 billion into the bureaucracy, $33.1 billion into the bureaucracy for the public good. CBC to receive $178 million. Says the government of Canada is spending about $33 billion to sustain its operations, with the CBC receiving $178 million. Meanwhile, a global credit rating agency warns the more deficit spending, even if urgently required for the public good under the Carney Liberals, could pressure Canada's credit profile. Her Excellency, the Governor General in Council, on the recommendation, blah, blah, blah. It's the same stuff I've already read, but fundamentally they're saying we need this. And the reality is, it's actually putting our fiscal situation at risk. Jinghal He says Mark Carney injects this money, $33 billion, in additional bureaucracy, and gave the CBC another $178 million. This was done without Parliament's approval. Economists are also forecasting a massive economic depression following suit. Voting has consequences. I don't think anybody's voted for this. I think that our elections are massively rigged. The director of public prosecutions, I was just looking, I was just looking through, and there's all sorts of, like, the director of public prosecutions got a certain amount for his office. Yeah, here it is, $25 million. And I thought, who's the director of public prosecutions? And I just wanted to look it up because I thought, what's he doing with $25 million? How big of an office does he run? And maybe is it the whole Canada-wide public prosecutions? Do you need $25 million for that? Or, I have questions. What's he doing with it? What's the oversight here? Because it seems like it's a lot of freaking money. And is that for the year? Is that for the quarter? I have no idea. So learned people should understand what we're handing out, because I have no idea. Even this list, like that's great, but it means absolutely nothing to me because I know nothing about how much it takes to run that office, and I know nothing about what that's going. Is that 5 employees? Is that 25 employees? Is that 300 employees? Like, I have no idea. And if it's 300 employees, is that offices too, operating budgets, paper and all the rest of it, advertising, all of it, or is there other tangential expenses? Like, I have absolutely no idea what this means, and because of that, it's almost meaningless. Except that I know that the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions gets $25 million, and I have more questions, and that's it, right? I know very little about this situation, but it seems high to me, right? So I don't know. Here is MoCA. Yeah, we already talked about that. We've already done that. These are a lot of the same public prosecutions. Marty up north says, this is a gross violation of our Constitution and an abuse of the orders in council. No one should be okay with this. Section 53 of the Constitution Act 1867 ensures that no spending can occur without the approval of the House of Commons in Canada. It states that bills for appropriating any part of the public revenue for imposing any tax or impost must originate in the House of Commons. This establishes the principle of no taxation without representation and ensures that the elected representatives in the House of Commons have control over government spending and taxation. We haven't had proper fiscal oversight in Canada in the last 3 years. Yeah, no, they're robbing the country blind at this point. And people don't want to face it to the point of getting angry with you if you say we're being robbed, our taxes and our production into the future are being stolen, and nobody's even addressing that at all. Nobody cares. It's wild. Mark Nixon says, did Mark Carney seriously not know that the U.S. was cutting a deal with a sweetheart deal with the steel and aluminum with the United Kingdom? Meanwhile, Canada is still getting hammered with 25% tariffs. No deal, no progress, no plan. What is going on in Canada? Who's negotiating for us? The CBC? Trump keeps 10% tariffs on UK, cuts taxes on British autos, steel, and aluminum in trade deal. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with, are we going to start seeing Vauxhall cars being made for US roads? That'll be interesting, right? Like, I've gone to England quite a lot, or I used to. It's been more than 15 years since I've been now. But my uncle and a whole bunch of people worked near car manufacturing plants, and they knew people who worked at the car manufacturing plants. So everybody was driving nice new Vauxhalls when I was over there almost every time. And they're nice cars, you know what I mean? And it'd be interesting if they had to increase their production for exports, right? Like, why not? Why not? I'm sure there's a market for it. Why not? Why not try? And so it's a very interesting situation because it's beneficial. And what Trump was saying is it's got to be reciprocal. It's got to be beneficial for you and beneficial for us. So let's do it, and it'll be beneficial for everybody. So we'll see. In Canada, yeah, we're getting screwed. We're getting screwed. Mark Carney should have known. Absolutely. Here is Spencer. Oh, I had another election thing that was supposed to go in here as well. I was going to clean up the government thing and split out the election stuff. But Spencer goes through. This is the Make Canada Great Again channel. And this is Spencer, and he's gone into multiple rallies and disrupted rallies and directly called Mark Carney out for his Epstein ties and things like that, or Ghislaine Maxwell ties, things like that. And so he's done a good job, and he's got a great amount of followers, 60,000 followers almost. So good for him. And he goes through the math of the election, and he says proof that the Liberals likely cheated in the last election. And I think that he makes a good case. And it's a 32-minute video. I was watching it last night, and about halfway through, he changes. He stops kind of going through the math of it. Like, I was pretty satisfied by about 15 minutes in about his claims and his proof. I thought he does a good job overall. And then I got busy with something else. Maybe there was a game on last night. Anyway, I digress. Overall, he makes the case that the way the elections broke over in 2025 and maybe 2021, it seems unlikely based on population and so on. But especially the 2025 election, saying that the Liberals got this many votes. He says that, well, I'll let him make the case fundamentally, but he was saying that basically all of the overflow, all of the people who abandoned the NDP, abandoned the Greens and the PPC got funneled into the Liberals, and that's what gave them their numbers, basically. I'm maybe butchering his argument, but fundamentally I thought, man, like that's very plausible and would allow them to walk away with us. So very, very interesting stuff. And you can check it out. I think our elections are rigged. Spencer thinks the elections are rigged. And I don't think anybody really knows what to do about it, because what to do about it is uncomfortable. And if you talk seriously about dealing with this seriously, you would get in trouble. People would say you're an insurrectionist, you're trying to overthrow the government, so on and so forth, because I don't think that there is a legitimate way to fix this within the current system, because I think the current system is so corrupted, including our judges. And I don't want a situation where, you have a dictator who comes in and starts throwing people in jail because he says that they're corrupt. That's not what I want. I want tribunals of citizens outside the courts, because I think the courts are corrupt, and I think citizens would make better judicial decisions than any of our corrupt judges at this point in time. So give citizen tribunals the power to imprison and or meter out punishments acceptable to the public, and then clean house and remove the rot. Right? I don't want to do it in a way that's unilateral, but we have to address this. The only way to address it is to remove the rot. And I don't think anybody wants to do that. And I don't think there's any political will to do that. And if you started doing it, people would scream and yell that you are insurrectionists, so on and so forth. So it's very difficult. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Trump has a way to do this, remove the rot while maintaining the system. But he's running into headwinds now too. I saw an article this morning, or a tweet this morning, talking about how the only thing that he's been able to get through the House and the Senate, the House, is the Gulf of America Act. Everything else has been held up, and the Senate hasn't passed the Gulf of America Act. So Trump's trying to do this legit, and I don't know that there's a way to do it legit. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Here is what the United Nations, we're going to talk about land acknowledgements. Yesterday I showed you Catherine Cronus, and she was talking about how this is compelled speech. You doing these land acknowledgements, it doesn't represent me or my beliefs. You can give it a rest at these school council meetings. Like, we don't need to acknowledge land in school council meetings, because it's just training people to say this isn't our land. And why is training people to say this isn't our land important? Because they're going to try and take your land, everybody's land, and give it to the United Nations to administer for the First Nations people who claim rights to your land. You understand? And so if there's public land somewhere and some First Nations band decides that it's their land, well, you can't access that anymore. Sorry about your luck. And so that's not great. People don't want that. Now, this is not for the full summer, although I don't know the history of the Joffrey Lakes Provincial Park. I don't know if Joffrey Lakes has been closed for the full summer, or if there's just been a period of time for closures. This year, there's just a period of time for closures, April something to May 26th or something to that effect. And then after that, the public gets access. But even so, this woman makes a good argument, I think. Here is Caroline, and she says, you might be wondering, what's with all the fuss around the closure of Joffrey Lakes Provincial Park to non-Indigenous British Columbians? So apartheid. Here we go.
You might be wondering, what's with all the fuss around the closure of Joffrey Lakes Provincial Park? 2 years ago, 2 First Nations unilaterally shut down the park, one of the most popular parks in BC, excluding any non-Indigenous British Columbians from accessing it, right in the middle of peak season. The nations had no legal authority to do so, yet the BC government not only acquiesced, but actually sent park officials to turn non-Indigenous visitors away. They repeated the closure last year, and again this year, and likely next year and the year after that too. Now, it's easy to think, what's the harm in this? Well, it's important to understand that the Joffrey Lakes closure was done on the basis of the park being within the nation's traditional territory, where title has been asserted but not established in the courts. So if we're now in a place where the mere assertion of title confers the right to prohibit public access to public spaces, then we all need to be aware that over 100% of BC's landmass is claimed as unceded traditional territory by one or more of the province's 200 plus Indigenous groups. That means we have to ask, what would prevent more closures like this, not just in other parks, but in relation to any other public lands? The reality is it's divisive, it sets a terrible precedent, and it's just plain wrong. One thing it isn't is complicated. BC's beautiful provincial parks belong to all British Columbians.
Aha, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, and I said I can't remember what that story about theft of land is, but trust me, this is it. Yeah, when they set a standard, when they set a situation where First Nations can shut down public access because they claim that they own this land, even though that claim has not been proven in court, then they can do that across the entire landmass of British Columbia because they claim all of it. And so that's very, very concerning and something that I don't want. Barbara says basically it's considered okay for parks to be apartheid spaces in British Columbia. Crazy town. Here's Western Standard reporting on this. Popular BC park closed to the public to give First Nations time to connect with the land. Popular park in southwestern British Columbia has been closed to the public since April 25th to give First Nations time to connect with the land. Joffrey Parks is scheduled to reopen on May 17th to recognize the importance of the Joffrey Lakes Park area to the Lilquat Nation and the whatever. I can't read these names. I'm sorry. And there's a 7 in the middle of this one. Like, come on. I can't take it seriously. It's not serious. It is in fact teabagging First Nations people with disrespect by putting this nonsense and pretending that that's their language. Come on. Anyway, back to this. The park will be closed to recreational visitors and the general public from April 25th to May 16th, 2025. BC Parks wrote in a statement. This period will provide exclusive space for the nation and the other one to connect with the land. When the park is once again accessible to everyone, those over the age of 12 must reserve a free day pass to enter. So, yeah, the conservation area near Rockwood. I grew up in Guelph, and Rockwood, we would go there to hang out in the bush and drink. I mean, party or whatever. And so a lot of the backyards of the kids in Rockwood backed on to the conservation area, and you could just walk into the conservation area and you could basically have full access because it was almost your backyard. And then they started saying, no, we're charging for access, but not you guys, because you guys are, you live in Rockwood and you guys are exempt from the charges of access and things like that. So it's interesting, you have to reserve a free day pass, because I think it's on the way to now you're going to be charged for this. You're going to have cost for access, right? So, and the people in Rockwood didn't want anybody accessing or anybody charging for access. They said, this is insanity. Like, what are you talking about? This is a provincial park charging for access. And they scoffed at it, and they were upset. People were pissed off about it. Anyway, it was always fun. It was one of those things. Here is Christine Barrios, and she says, land acknowledgements have officially been removed from our parent council meetings agenda. So she says, yay. And here's a bit more. She says, on November 28th, 2025, I formally objected to the recitation of land acknowledgements at my children's school parent council meetings. I also sit on the PIC Parent Involvement Committee and have done the same there. Much is coming out of this, and I hope to document the unfolding by the end of the month. For now, I was asked to share the most recent letter I wrote to our parent council team since having an open discussion at our last meeting. We must create and maintain a space where differing views are expressed without fear of dismissal or coercion, especially when those views concern practices that are neither neutral nor universally embraced, and even more critically when linked to the education of our children. My hope is that moving forward, we can anchor our decisions in truth, openness, and information in informed consent rather than assumption of pressure. So, yeah, good. And then the update is that the land acknowledgement was removed. So that's a win, absolutely. So that's good news. And then this is the land acknowledgement where this is not Christine, but Catherine. And so she says, no, we're not doing this. I don't want you to speak on my behalf. Drea Humphreys is weighing in on this as well. She says, stop yourself and your kids from being brainwashed into citing land acknowledgement mantras. This is another example of why. And yeah, it's the danger of just handing land over because we're taught to repeat over and over that this land is not our land. This is my house, man. This is my land right here. Right? So I don't know what you're talking about, but if you want to take my land from me, it's going to take a lot more than me repeating some kind of mantra that I don't repeat. Here is a grab bag of governance. We've got some time. Globe Politics is reporting Carney to announce new cabinet Tuesday, promises to focus on economic matters. So people think that that's a good news, but I don't think that's good news, because the Prime Minister said, according to the National Post, that he plans to return to Justin Trudeau's gender parity rule for his cabinet. Womp womp. So we're going to have a big bloated cabinet with the same amount of men and women, because if you need another position and that position gets filled by a man, well, then you create a new cabinet position for a woman, right? Like it's one of those situations. Or if you create a cabinet position and put a woman in there, then you can create another cabinet position for a man to balance it out if you want to. So that just costs us money in new ministers for no reason whatsoever, right? And for virtue signaling. Why? Virtue signaling points. I'd like to have between 3 and 5, maybe up to 7 ministers, and that's it to manage the whole federal everything. Everything else should be downloaded to the provinces, and then the provinces should probably have 5 people to administer everything, because having all these ministries administering all sorts of complex bureaucracies doesn't make any sense, because it's really inefficient as far as the government goes. And the government is terrible at delivering everything that it's supposed to deliver. It's pretty terrible at. So why not cut it back and allow the citizens to direct everything, right? My gosh. National Post says, parody. The Globe and Mail says, this is concerning. And this is concerning because Ryan lays it out. He says the media is promoting encampments as a chance to build communities in Canada. There's a problem. They're trying to normalize it. Canada is broken. So the Globe and Mail is running, what do encampments offer that shelters don't? A chance to build community. The strict rules at shelters that discourage communities from forming are based on the belief that humans are individual units, that those who live at the edges of society, blah, 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 blah. But this is written by Maggie Helwig. She is, and I looked into her, she's a far left activist, right? Hold on, I'll tell you what her Wikipedia says. Maggie Helwig is a Canadian poet, novelist, and social justice activist, and an Anglican priest. Her early education was Kingston Collegiate and Vocational Institute, blah, 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 blah. But my concern is, why is the Globe and Mail running this nonsense? Why are they trying to normalize encampments? Why are they trying to run this far left social justice warrior activist as... And I mean, sure, it's an opinion piece, but like the Globe and Mail carrying this piece lends it weight. It's weird. It's a strange, strange thing. And encampments building community? Nah. The danger of communities being built in shelters is that those communities say, that bed belongs to, like in Oz, right? Like, oh, are you part of the, like the Schillinger group? Are you part of the gay guys? Are you part of, right? Like are you part of the African gang? So all of these things, you don't want that happening in a shelter that's supposed to be pretty neutral. Like you deal with you and don't worry about anything else to that effect. You want to run a gang? Yeah. Go to a homeless encampment, I guess, because that's a thing we're doing in Canada now. Weird. No, and I don't agree with it. I don't think that homeless encampments should not be alternate options for people. And yet there are some kind of laws on the books now that say that encampments can operate in parks sometimes. What? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Our leadership at every level are selling out the citizens in favor of random people showing up who buy tents and they just put them up in parks. And oh yeah, welcome. You're part of our community now. No, deport them. Bye-bye. You shouldn't be here, and you shouldn't have wasted your time and money, because that was a mistake, because we're going to send you back on a plane now. Bye. Right? Like, what? We should be protecting ourselves, not protecting foreigners who are living in tents. Honestly, this is an interesting 2 minutes. This is, people are living under the tunnels beneath Las Vegas. I remember Superman comics talking about tunnels. I remember tunnels in LA. I remember all sorts of societies in overpasses, like elevated highways in the spots underneath the highway, but underneath the road, right? So like there's the road deck, and then underneath that is some space, and then there's like a a fascia under it, but it's all secure and stuff, and people live in there, I guess. And there's all sorts of tunnel communities that have cropped up. And this one was just interesting. I'm not advocating for any of this kind of stuff, but it's interesting how people find cracks in security, and then 1,500 people start living underneath the very famous casinos on the Strip. Here's a minute of this.
How long have you been in this tunnel?
In these tunnels, about 5 years, since COVID. They had one homeless shelter that was overran, and I just followed the tracks and ended up down here.
That place, a network of tunnels stretching hundreds of miles, originally meant to divert rainwater, and now home to an entire underground population, all living just a few feet under the bright lights of the Las Vegas Strip.
How many people do you estimate are living here right now?
Approximately 12 to 1,500.
So we are 3 feet
Caesar's Palace.
beneath Caesar's Palace on the Las Vegas Strip.
You said it yourself. You've been here many times. You would never even know it was here.
Rob was addicted to a number of substances and says he's now...
Right? So pretty crazy stuff. The tunnels helped him heal. No property taxes, right? Like he said there's no worry about wind or any randomness. He says maybe the tunnels can be chaotic, but it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So very interesting stuff going on in tunnels. Just kind of pairing off with the homelessness thing. It's people live in weird places where you don't expect. And so the ability for a place like even Guelph or Toronto to absorb people, and then when you start really looking, they come out of the woodwork from everywhere. It's like, holy smoke. How did this small space have so many people in it, right? And they just keep coming. And so it's a very interesting thing. I think the problem is much worse than we know. Table Salt says immigration train wreck in Canada between April 24 and April 25. Canada added 512,000 working aged Canadians between 25 and 54 years old, but recorded only 182,000 more people working full time. Where did all those people go? They're living in the tunnels, for crying out loud. Tunnel dwellers. Here is this woman, and I think we're going to kill the stream at this point in time. Yeah, it's about time to kill the stream. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we will catch you tomorrow. Actually, no, I will not be here tomorrow, so I'm off for a little bit. I will be back probably next week. I have some travel to do for work, so apologies about that. And due to this work travel, I will be kind of busy every day and too busy to reliably podcast, so sorry about that. So we will see you next week. And there won't be a kitchen table talk tomorrow because I'm going to be traveling. So that's not, I mean, it's kind of fun, but it's not that fun. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful